Everyone, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting called to order. We're going to start with the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Urban here, Latte
Here.
Simon here, Wickert
Here.
Tefreshi
Here.
Gray, absent, Benzinger.
Here.
Okay, moving right along. Entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
Make a motion. Support.
Okay, moving right along. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes?
There was one correction made to the minutes to reflect that Vice Chair Simon called the meeting to order and we.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was not available.
You did a good job.
You for handling that. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes then.
Can you speak up in the back row, please?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that. Move the approval.
All those in favor?
I saw.
Aye. You need a second? Is there a second? Oh, you said.
Oh,
Was there? I don't know.
the two of you.
Okay.
Do you have that for the minutes, Jessica?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I heard it out of the corner of my mind. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Moving along. I have no report for this evening. Village manager?
There's not much to report this month. We had our last month with the City of Mount Pleasant PD. Starting this month, we are now with the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. We've had 18 new code violations that will be entered in and sent out as of this month. And we've had 3 new zoning permits. We do have 1 new house coming in. They have the application and we're waiting on well and septic. Once that gets on my desk, I'll be able to go out and do the measurements and then hopefully we'll get that approved this month.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any representation from village council?
I think the report.
Okay, great. Next on the agenda, we have public hearings. Proposed ordinance 2026 of Green Park entrance adjacent lots. At this time, I'll call the public hearing to order at 7:03.
Before you is the attached ordinance addressing the issue that was discussed at February's meeting and last month's meeting that allows platted lots which are separated by a platted access strip for a private park, outlot, or common area to be considered as a single site for zoning. This would allow a home to be built on one lot and an accessory structure to be built on the other lot. This comes from, we had already approved allowing garages across the street, and we have a handful of lots that are on either side of this easement, if you will, that we don't allow them to build a garage. And the thought process is an easement is no different than a road when it comes to separating lots for accessory dwelling purposes. So what this ordinance will do would be allow them to combine their properties via deed restriction. And in that deed restriction, it would say, just for an example, this permanently combines lot 1 of Forest 2 and lot 2 of Forest 2 and excludes the 10-foot easement to outlot A. And then they would be able to, following all of our other rules and regulations for garages and accessory structures across the street, as long as they could meet those, they would be able to then build a garage on it.
Discussion.
Has there been much?
I like it, looks good.
I agree with it, but has there been much inquiry For that as yet, okay.
I did talk with George earlier today.
Good.
He just wanted to make sure that there was language in there to prevent somebody from coming back and stating that because they've mowed it for so long that it's been their property, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they've changed the laws on that anyways, where that's no longer visible, if you will. It used to be like that, but that's changed in legislature.
Is there a book we had or something like that? Yeah, that's.
Without further discussion. Jump to public. At this time, I can ask for public comment. I would ask that you state your name, address, and we're limited to 3 minutes.
For this specific topic.
Yes, for this specific topic. You may speak on both if you wish.
Kenneth Scott, I live at 1089 Isabella Vista. Just curious who would be responsible for mowing said easement?
That would be the property owners association because it's their easement.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on that topic?
Would make one comment, when they bring in a site plan, I would suggest that they define where their corner pins are. That would definitely alleviate some of the taking ownership of something you don't belong to, because those easements seem to move around a little.
John, will you state your name and address just for the record?
John Dolphinbach, 1284 Clubhouse.
Thank you, sir. There's nothing else. We'll move along and close that public session at 7:07. Next public hearing is on the proposed data center ordinance 2026-04. Yes, I'll open at this time.
The purpose of proposed ordinance 2026-04 is to establish local zoning regulations governing data centers within the village of Lake Isabella. As the village currently lacks specific regulations to address them, and without local regulations, many forms of data center development could potentially be reviewed under broader industrial or commercial categories not specifically designed to address the unique infrastructure, environment, utility, and compatibility issues associated with such facilities, meaning that technically right now, because we have nothing in our ordinance, regulating them, they could and have in other areas in Michigan slid in under other regulations that the zoning does have. So having an ordinance in place would prevent that from happening. The ordinance reflects concerns regarding electrical demand, groundwater and water usage impacts, noise generated by cooling systems and generators, visual impacts, emergency response considerations, and long-term infrastructure strain on small municipalities. It defines the data centers and associated accessory uses, what districts that small data centers could be allowed in. It does outright prohibit large-scale or hyperscale data centers within the village. It creates setbacks, what utilities are required. It touches on noise and lighting limitations. It has protection of wetlands, shoreline areas, and groundwater resources, and authorized decommissioning requirements and financial guarantees where appropriate. We've had 3 emails come in regarding data centers. The one that you got in your packet, I did that, Mike and Gina Holcomb had asked that that one be rescinded, and they have submitted a new one that I will read tonight. Okay. So the first one will be from Mike and Gina Holcomb. And it says, "Dear members of the Planning Commission, please accept this list of formal questions into the official public record regarding the proposed data center ordinance 2026-4. Furthermore, as residents unable to attend in person, we explicitly request that this statement and the following questions be read aloud during the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. As residents, we are deeply concerned about the long-term impacts this ordinance will have on our community's character, safety, and infrastructure. We request that each of the following points be directly addressed before any further action is taken on this proposal. Property siting and local impacts, Drew Road and the Cal Brewer Airport. Question 1. Section 1 of the ordinance 2026-4 permits small-scale data centers on parcels meeting a 5-acre minimum. What protections are in place to prevent an individual from purchasing multiple contiguous properties on Drew Road, combining them under a single tax bill, and using the loophole to qualify for the 5-acre threshold? Question 2. The Village of Lake Isabella currently owns the land for the Cal Brewer Memorial Airport, but leases operational rights. If the airport association or users do not renew their lease with the village, what legal guarantees exist that this public property will not be rezoned or sold off for high-impact industrial data center development? Master plan and voting threshold question. Given that the 2025 master plan was only recently approved, why does the village allow fundamental zoning ordinance rewrites with only a simple majority vote of attending members? Question 4. Will the planning commission consider requiring a vote of the village residents for high-impact industrial, including any type of data center, amendments to ensure broad consensus and protect the community's long-term vision? Buffer zones and proximity to residents question. Question 5. Ordinance 2604 potentially permits massive data center developments within 2 miles of residential properties. What health, safety, and property value studies did the commission use to justify this narrow setback? Question 6. Many communities require much larger buffer zones for heavy tech infrastructure. Why isn't the village enforcing a stricter distance requirements to isolate residents from structural vibrations, heat dissipation, and continuous cooling exhaust? Decommissioning guarantees may versus shall. Question 7. The current draft states the village may require tech companies to guarantee and secure decommissioning costs. Why is this phrased as an optional condition rather than a mandatory requirement? Question 8. Will the commission change this language to shall to legally obligate any tech operator to post a surety bond or irrevocable letter of credit, fully protecting Lake Isabella taxpayers from being left with the bill for an abandoned facility? Weak decibel noise requirements. Question 9. The proposed decibel limits in this ordinance are weak compared to the constant low frequency hum generated 24/7 by data center chillers and industrial fans. What specific acoustic engineering data was utilized to set these limits? Question 10. How will the village enforce noise compliance? And what are the immediate penalties or shutdown procedures if a facility exceeds acceptable ambient noise levels for nearby homeowners? Sitting moratorium, temporary pause versus statewide legislation. Question 11. Senator Runstad introduced Michigan Senate Bills 1018, 1019, and 1020 to establish a statewide 365-day moratorium on new data center approvals to study environmental and grid impacts. Why is Lake Isabella rushing to pass a permanent ordinance right now instead of enacting a local moratorium to align with this pending state level pause? Question 12. More than 50 Michigan municipalities have already passed local moratoriums to protect their water resources and electrical grids. Why is our planning commission opting to create a permissive pathway for developers instead of pausing to properly evaluate the burden on our local infrastructure? Thank you for your time, your leadership, and your careful consideration of these serious community concerns. We look forward to hearing your detailed responses during the upcoming public forum. The next one is from Melissa Shake from 1045 El Camino Grande. Village of Lake Isabella proposed ordinance 2604 data center regulations. I strongly urge the planning commission to reject the proposed data center ordinance as written and take a stronger stance by prohibiting both small and large scale data centers within the village of Lake Isabella. This ordinance potentially opens the door to industrial scale development that is not consistent with the character of our community. Data centers, regardless of size, can consume significant amounts of electricity and water, strain utilities, generate constant noise from cooling systems and backup generators, increase light pollution, create additional traffic, and have lasting impacts on our environment. Once adopted, this ordinance will make it more difficult to prevent these facilities from locating here. Our village should protect its residents' natural resources and quality of life. The possible benefits do not outweigh the long-term impacts on our community. Roy Shake, also from 1045 El Camino, and I apologize if I've said the last name wrong. I would urge the planning commission to take a stronger stance to prevent data center from coming to Lake Isabella. I believe that the proposed ordinance does not go far enough and should limit even small data centers from being allowed in the community. The possible benefits of the center do not outweigh the net.
Did you do some refines on here? Was that when I see on a couple of them?
I did, if you would like me to. Reflect.
Yeah, if you could, if you could read your thoughts, replies on these that you sent back. So that you can answer a lot of the questions.
So before we open it up to the public, we're going to add some responses in case it overlaps with the questions that you might have. Hopefully you'll get good answers some along the way.
To answer Roy's question, we first would like to thank him for his comments, and they have now been entered into public record. The purpose of the proposed ordinance is not to encourage data centers, but to regulate them. By only allowing small-scale data centers as a special land use within the industrial district while prohibiting large-scale and hyperscale data centers throughout the entire village, the ordinance establishes where a data center may be considered, where they are prohibited, and the standards that they must meet. This approach provides the village with greater local control and is generally more legally defensible under the Michigan zoning law than a complete prohibition of an otherwise lawful land use.
So really light industrial zoning area only.
Correct. And that would only be for a small scale. Large scale, industrial sized, hyperscale, none of that under this zoning code would be allowed.
Do you have a map? You can put up there like you gave us, so they can see what we're talking about? If not, we can. put it up.
If somebody wants to just pass out.
Somebody wanna grab one of mine?
And here's a couple more that you can share.
Yeah, that's a couple more.
No, this would be.
Thanks. On the website.
Yeah.
To address Melissa. The purpose of the proposed ordinance is, again, not to encourage data centers, but to regulate them. By allowing only small-scale data centers as a special land use within the industrial district, while prohibiting large-scale and hyperscale data centers throughout the village, the ordinance establishes where data centers may be considered and where they're prohibited, and gives us the most legal defensible stance under Michigan law. Question 1. They stated section 1 of the ordinance permits the small scale data centers on parcels meeting at 5 acre minimum. And they asked what protections that are in place to prevent them. The ordinance already says that data centers are only permitted in the industrial district as a special land use. And so specifically talking about Drew Road and the Cal Brewer Airport, neither of those places are zoned industrial.
So
So pretty much if they're passing that around. There's really one spot.
Correct.
This spot that the village.
And the village.
The village is in it, yeah.
Only properties zoned industrial are eligible for small-scale data centers as a special land use. Combining parcels does not change the zoning, and the ordinance specifically prohibits using multiple parcels or phased developments to circumvent its requirements. Meaning, we don't, just because you buy them and combine them, and now you meet the 5 acre, you're still not zoned industrial. The village of Lake Isabella currently owns the land for the Cal Brewer Memorial Airport, but leases its operational rights. The village ordinance expressly prohibits large-scale and hyperscale data centers throughout the village. Neither the Drew Road properties nor the Cal Brewer Memorial Airport are currently zoned industrial, and the proposed ordinance does not rezone any property. Any future rezoning would require a separate public process under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. Questions like this requiring more of a legal interpretation, engineering analysis, and research beyond the proposed ordinance will probably need to be referred to our village attorney. Master plan. Given that the 2025 master plan was recently approved, why does the village allow fundamental zoning ordinance rewrites? Voting procedures are established by Michigan law, the village charter, the village ordinances, and they are not established by our master plan. Our master plan is the guide that we use to help establish them, but it's not a voting document. And because the Michigan zoning ordinances are adopted using the procedures established by Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, voting on them is not required, nor would it be practical, because then we would have to have a vote every November for any ordinance that wanted to be done. We can't just do a vote at our planning commission, if you will. I mean, a vote would need to be for all registered voters for the Lake Isabella. And that's just, it's not the way any sort of zoning ordinance anywhere in the state of Michigan is handled. Ordinance 2026-4, potential permits, massive data center developments within 2 miles. I'm unclear on where that is, because nowhere in our ordinance does it establish or say anything about a 2-mile setback. It does establish setbacks, residential buffer, noise standards, and environmental protections. Many communities require larger buffer zones for heavier tech infrastructure. Why isn't the village enforcing a stricter distance requirement to isolate residents from structural vibration, heat dissipation, and continuous cooling exhaust? Again, those all go with hyperscale and large data centers, which are expressly prohibited. However, if the planning commission wanted to, they could consider increasing the setbacks. Question 7. The current draft states the village may require tech companies to guarantee a secure decommissioning cost. Why is this phrased as an operational condition rather than a mandatory requirement? This is actually a good point. You may want to change the may to shall. We do that with any home that, unfortunately has a fire or some other issue that it hurts the home. We require them to have some sort of deposit on file so that we can go in and clean it up should they not be able to finish it. Will the commission change this language to shall? That is something you guys can decide tonight. The proposed decibel limits in this ordinance are weak compared to the constant low frequency hum generated 24/7 by data center chillers and industrial fans. What specific acoustic engineering data was utilized to set these limits? The ordinance establishes maximum noise standards. Additional technical study requirements are currently under consideration. However, we need to remember that a small scale data center could be something as modest as a local healthcare provider's server facility, a bank or credit union's data room, a school district or university's server buildings, a county government's IT facility. It's not just It's just not a bunch of boxes sitting out there row by row by row. And small scale data centers usually don't require the data center chillers and the industrial fans. The constant low frequency hum generated 24/7 by data center chillers and industrial fans is much more characteristic of the hyperscale facilities like Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon. How will the village enforce noise compliance? Compliance would be enforced through our village zoning enforcement procedures and applicable ordinances. Regarding the bills that were introduced to establish a statewide moratorium. The referenced legislation has not been enacted on. The village right now is making planning decisions under current Michigan law. If we wait until the state acts on that, we leave ourselves wide open to having a data center try to come in. If these become law and the moratorium is in place, that puts a moratorium even over top of our zoning ordinance. So it would be a double protection should they should they pass it. But we should have something in place right now protecting us until the state comes through with their. More than 50 Michigan municipalities have already passed local moratoriums to protect their water resources. Why is our planning commission opting to create a permissive pathway for developers instead of pausing to properly evaluate the burden on our local infrastructure? This ordinance is a regulatory, not promotional ordinance. It prohibits almost all data centers, with the exception of the small scale data centers, which can go in one specific section in the village if they met all of our criteria and owned the land. The proposed ordinance is not intended to create a permissive pathway for developers, but to deter it. Its purpose is to establish clear local standards, prohibit the large-scale and hyperscale data centers throughout the village, and allow only limited small-scale data centers within the industrial district with a special land use process. Without regulations addressing this emerging land use, the village would have fewer locally adopted standards available to evaluate if a future proposal came in. A municipality can prohibit a land use if it has a legitimate planning basis and if the prohibition does not become an exclusionary zoning under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, which right now a lot of municipalities are facing, and one has already went to court. Simply because we, the planning commission and the council and our residents do not want it here. If we outright ban it completely, the state of Michigan and the courts have usually come back and said that that was exclusionary. So you need to have a spot somewhere in the village where, if for some reason we thought it was a good fit and a developer did come in, they could place a small scale data center in the industrial district. Communities that have created a moratorium are Meridian Township. They have a 6-month moratorium while they're drafting their regulations. Lyon Township has a 180-day moratorium only on new data centers. Sherman Township has a 12-month moratorium to allow zoning updates. That's not the Sherman Township of Isabella County though. Detroit, the city council requested a 2-year moratorium while additional studies are conducted. And rightfully so, they are much bigger than Lake Isabella and have a lot more land that could potentially be impacted by this. And Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority has requested a 12-month moratorium on providing water and sewer services to new hyperscale and mid-sized data centers. This is a utility moratorium though, and not a zoning moratorium. Communities that have publicly discussed or considered moratoriums are including Sterling Heights, Pontiac, Taylor, Northville, and Springfield Township. Lowell Township, the township rejected a proposed moratorium and instead continued processing data center proposals. Buffer zones. What health, safety, and property value studies did the commission use to justify this narrow setbacks? the proposed ordinance doesn't establish. What we felt was a narrow setback. However, it is something that you guys can look into if you would like to increase that.
What would be the? Just curious, what would be the reason on that when you're looking at? You'd be across Coldwater Road and 2 miles. I mean, that covers it. To the south. You're getting outside of the village.
Right.
To the east, you got ag use, and then you'll be outside. I just see what we have here. Even though 2 miles doesn't sound like a lot, if you look at the map, it's covering the basis.
Right. I mean,
I mean, we can put whatever, but
it's a what, the questions are what if questions. What if somehow these lots that are vacant got together, all sold, then we went through the entire process to rezone, even though it's against what our master plan is, what you guys have spent, the last couple of years perfecting. And you said, you want these areas to be residential, but you could change your mind. And then after they have bought the land, and then you change your mind, and we go through the rezoning process, and then it's rezoned as industrial, and then the data center could then come in. That's what it's getting at.
So,
There's nothing in our ordinance that would allow this, nor is that the intention of the village planning commission or council, is my understanding.
so the light industrial area, if somebody wanted to come in there, it would require a special land use.
It would require us selling our DPW building.
So I know that. but
Yes, it
I'm
would
just
require,
saying,
yeah, it would require a special
So if
land.
that ever were to happen, it would still have to come through here for approval
Yes.
and and public comment
Yes,
and to the council.
yes,
So in any other area that wants to get zoned like that would have to come here,
yes,
public comment and to the council.
public hearing and then.
Right,
Yes,
so it's
yes,
not like they could come in and say, this sounds great, and Jessica could say, sounds good to me.
right, right. You know,
Good, Jessica, thank you.
Anything else on that?
this ordinance is consistent with items 2 of the zoning ordinance amendments to consider from page 51 to 100. The master plan also states, beginning on page 48, what criteria is to be used and considered for future rezoning requests. And the future land use map on page 35 does not show any areas actually as industrial.
Right? Well, thank you, Jessica. I think that was a huge help, and thank you to the people who took the time to write in, and
Yes.
thank you to all of you for showing up this evening to discuss this. So at this time, I'd like to open it for public hearing at 7:33. If you have something you'd like to say, if you could stand, state your name, your address, and you're limited to 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
My name is Ian Walters, in 63 Circle Drive, Lake Isabella. My question is, I'm a computer tech for the past 20 years. I own gaming computers in Mount Pleasant. So I do know about data. But I know there is a lot of people live out here that don't know anything about data. Those are more elderly people. I think it would be wise that you guys form a committee to do investigation first on the employees of Lake Isabella to make sure nobody has their hands tied in the cookie jar that gonna make money, that gonna try to implement a data center in Lake Isabella. And second, a data center, once you open the door for a data center, you're not only opening a door like you opening the cookie jar, because a lot more other businesses can come in where they are even less dangerous than a data center. So saying that people need to know more about data center I mean, I do it every day. That's what I do for a living. And it has its goods, it has its bad. But when there is people who don't know about it, they might be signing something or supporting something that they don't know about. And I think you guys should teach people, find somebody to come in and talk to people and let them know what the benefits are and what the negatives are about. But there is more negative towards a data center than there is benefits towards it. And it is not just my opinion, okay? It is not something good that you guys want to have here, because even as now, as we speak in here, somebody could be running a data center in their home in Lake Isabel and you don't even know. And that's not good. But the only other thing is, Lake Isabel are using Tri-County, I think, Charter, they also using, Frontier Internet. Once a data company coming into Lake Isabel in a little area like this, the bandwidth of internet really goes down. So everybody who has, like me at my home, we have 1 gig up, 1 gig up. I pay a lot of money for that, because my server from my home talk to my server in my store, so I can do my work when I come home. But when you have that magnitude of a data center, no matter how big, how small it is, the bandwidth gonna go down and people gonna suffer from that, because their internet speed gonna go from up there to down there. And now they're finding things are not moving fast enough for them. Some people who depend on medical issues that they have to get online to look at their medicine, or have to report information to their doctor, or data collecting from their device or heart problem to send to their doctor. You have glitches in between, and that information is not gonna get to where you need to go at the moment. And if something happened to that person living out here, it's a new problem. So I think you guys should do a very, very good, thorough investigation about that. But not only that, investigating people on the board of Lake Isabella to make sure nobody on that board is getting a kickback from any data center that's trying to come into Lake Isabella. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Dalton, look again. My only concern is primarily environmental, the noise and defining small is kind of a moving target. If you get somewhat small, then you get into cooling these servers and the things. Where's the water coming from? Is it coming from wells, groundwater, out of the lake? What's the word there? And it has to be recycled somewhere. Where does that go? And have you guys talked to any of the people that have any of the communities that have these data centers already? And find out what some of their pitfalls is, so we have something to arm ourselves with. Dowagiac comes to mind. There's probably several more out there, and I don't know if you guys have had any. Reach out to any of those people to find out if there's any stuff that come back to bite.
We had someone in the back there.
Bruce Sermon, 982 Quesa Drive. Watching the news this afternoon, just before I left to come over here, and the state of New York, which I don't care anything about. But they just, the governor just signed in a year's moratorium on all data centers, because AI, there's a rush to get all this stuff up. Orders, man, being cut. And very much, it's like, I worry about the environmental part. I'd like to know how the water is used, and is it put back into the ground? And if it does that, isn't it going, there's no guarantee they're not gonna put something in it that's gonna ruin everybody's down.
I think that
Okay.
I'm originally from Los Angeles, so I know about big cities. And I'm gonna help you for a living on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reformed.
And 1980, the Navy sent here to be a recruiter. So I was a recruiter in Mount Pleasant for 12 years. Anyway, we moved, before we retired, we worked all over the place. We moved here after living in cities like Louisville, we lived in Seattle, big cities. We moved here to get away from that. And we're really afraid of progress. There's nothing really here to support it. And whoever talked about the possible kickbacks on this. World's a pretty corrupt place these days. I'm really worried about that. Because for all the wrong reasons, we're gonna buy into them. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much.
Something else I wanted to say, I know my neighbor and I know somebody else tried to get a car wash permit here in Lake Isabella, would have been a very good thing. But because of the water that the car wash was gonna use and they need to be recycled, even though they was gonna provide a recycling process, the Lake Isabella turned that car wash down. Now, a data center gonna come in, they're gonna use water to cool that. What's gonna happen to that water? If you're gonna refuse a car wash, why would you approve a data center?
The village did not disapprove the car wash. The Central Michigan District Health Department did.
Really?
Right. So, for the because there's no water or sewer out here, the Central Michigan District Health Department said, no, they're not allowed to have, we can't tell them that they can if they don't have the proper permits for the health department and Eagle. Same thing with data centers, which is why we have it in there. They can come in and propose all their stuff, but they don't meet Eagle's requirements, Central Michigan District Health Department's requirements. And because we do not have water and sewer out here, with the exception of water over in the Forest 2 area through Isabella County. And that's something that the village the village residents has expressly stated they do not want. And there is no spot now necessarily for a sewer system. It makes it very hard for a data center to come in and get the correct permits that they will need for sewer.
But they can still collect their own water. They can have tanks to collect the water and recycle that water and then where they're gonna dump it, you don't know, but they can collect that same water back.
Right, but
True, but if a data center wanted to come into like a small scale data center, which we define as a building of 10,000 square feet or less. If they wanted to come in, they would have to go through the special land use permit process. In that special land use, that is where all of the required permits, all of the required information, they would have to bring all of that to the planning commission, and the planning commission would then have to look at it, send it off to our attorneys to make sure that everything is viable and correct and honest. And then if they thought that it met all of the criteria in our ordinance, that they provided all the necessary permits from state, local, and regulatory partners, and it would be a good fit in the right district, which is industrial, then they could potentially approve it. But to put all of that into a zoning ordinance is not how a zoning ordinance works. A zoning ordinance is just a framework. The permits and what you are asking comes when something is actually trying to come in, and then you put it on your special land use permit that it is required to have. It's required to have all of the studies done, and you have to bring us the studies that we can read prior to us even entertaining the idea of accepting your data center in Lake Isabella.
And if we do approve it, we're not the end. It goes to public comment, it goes to the city council. So it's not like we approve it and it's a done deal.
It would be us just making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mike Dunn, 1075 is Bell Vista. Just a question, you said somebody, if we change your mind in zoning and, decided we didn't want this data center after they already permit work is all put down, you can go back to like that battery plant in Big Rapids, Macasta area, all that land was approved, they're gonna put that in, and all of a sudden they changed their mind, they pulled the ordinance, they ended up in court. I'd be very wise to watch for that, because if these companies will take it to court. Number two, I've come from the utility industry, infrastructure in Michigan cannot handle these places. They just can't. I can only imagine what our availability charge from Tri-County Electric would be once one of these places going, it's already bad enough. But, yeah, we just want to have infrastructure, the water, I mean, I agree with him. You know, we came here for the quietness, I go downstate, I hate it. I hate it. And, you know, I get back up here, I mean, I've been up here, we've been up here 23 years, we've owned farm down the road from here. But, yeah, we come here for the quiet, and I think once you open Pandora box, you're not gonna be able to stop it. I think you put a wedge in that door, don't even let it open, and leave it.
The problem with that is if we are exclusionary, then we open ourselves up to going to court, which has already been proven in one instance, Saline, most recently, that we would lose, and then the data center would be able to come in regardless if we wanted it to or not. If we have an ordinance in place with restrictions, and we do allow it in one spot, then it shows that we're not excluding it. They just have a very small section that they could possibly go in,
But you're saying a small data center is 10,000 square feet?
Up to.
up to 10,000.
That's pretty good sized building.
It is. It is.
I mean,
You know, but we don't, again, there's not area here in the village that meets any of that criteria.
Well, there's the one,
Right, I mean,
we
yeah.
have to sell DPW in order for that to take
Yeah, we'd
place.
have to sell our
And
building.
that would have to be voted on by the council to sell community property and rezone that, so.
We wouldn't have to rezone it because it is
Well,
already in
right,
district.
I mean, you know,
But our brush pile is back
Yeah.
there, so.
yeah, ever growing. But, yeah, you can wordsmith it however you want, and however it has to be, but I
Yeah.
mean, they give it out or to a very, very small minimal is, I'm
I think
sure.
that's, I think that's what we're
What
trying,
I'm hearing.
I think that's what we're trying
Yeah.
to do, guys.
We're on the same page.
is we're all on the same page, not wanting it.
if we're strictly
Place.
exclusionary, it doesn't give us any legal standing or defense.
The same
By
as
having
it
it
is
in
right now.
zoning, it gives us a little bit of control and say on what we allow to come in here without being exclusionary. If you're straight exclusionary, this was a huge thing with the windmills, there wasn't as much of an issue here.
Yes, example in this.
It was in a different township, the
Zoning
zoning
district
district,
you're talking about.
and there were many court cases where townships and villages and the old penalty laws because they were exclusionary. to
Yeah.
The old
that, and then they-
So do we just need a motion on the floor?
Yeah, a lot of it. Airport is residential.
I have a question. 1060 Clubhouse Drive, my name's Dave Shalay. Is there any chatter or anyone that has spoken to anybody here about the data center?
No,
No chatter whatsoever.
there's
There's
no
not.
data center
There's
coming.
one
like-
proposed out by Oil City.
Okay, which isn't far from here.
Yes. Oh, wait.
So what I think there's a lot of great talk here tonight, a lot of great questions and concerns. I think there's a lot that we don't know about it. Jessica, you're doing a great job explaining why we need this ordinance, without a doubt. I wish you'd all have microphones up there. I'm old, I don't hear as well as I used to.
There's some seats up here.
And there's some seats up
I
there.
hear that.
My question is to the microphone. There's one question, yes or no?
No.
Okay, so you took them up the time I was in the past, you had a microphone.
Yes, they
Or
are
speaker.
working, however, Dave, we are working with CMU to bring in hearing. For hearing impaired, not that you're hearing impaired, but we are working with them to bring a system in that would work all of the time.
Your voice is great, don't get me wrong, I can hear you perfectly. I just, everybody else I don't hear.
10-year yelling at.
Once again, it's called education. You need to educate us.
I'm sure he can hear you.
And if you don't educate us, then we don't know. So, and the education goes beyond what we were just talking about here. It's a what if scenario. Okay, let's dig into that. What did you do? What kind of research? What's going on? What's next? That's all I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Susan Norford, 3469 Northland Road. So this supposedly, if it went in by Lake Isabella, are you gonna be going to adjoining areas like Middle City, Wavemet and taking their water? Dumping waste over there? How do we know you're not coming up, how far are you going out? with
We
that?
can only go to the village
Yeah,
limits.
so we can only operate within the village limits or have any say, what occurs with the village limits.
So outside, so somebody on Rollin, Road, on the other side of Rollin Road could put one and there's nothing we can really say about it.
One other question, why do they need all these data centers? If all these data centers are putting information in and spitting out all these facts, so you can go in and write anything you want, why do we need all these data centers all over the country?
Growing
Report that
technology.
information.
AI.
There's a race
Stop
to
it.
be the most intelligent country in the world. So just sell, one data center sells to 10 others, you don't have to build multi-billion-dollar building.
We're on the other side of the United States.
They do.
Try to be patient.
Thank you,
Thanks for letting us all speak, by the way.
absolutely.
Ken Scott again, and 89 is Bella Vista. I built these things. I'm a union electrician. I make a lot of money building data centers, solar fields, wind farms. I hate them all. I think they're all detrimental to the environment. Solar fields are a big one. All the heavy metals get washed off over the 20-year lifespan. And none of which will offset the carbon footprint that it costs to build all these things. The biggest thing with the data centers is the water usage and the grid. There is nowhere near enough grid out here, even to support a 10,000 square foot building. Nowhere near. I built substations, all of it, generation plants. And they'd have to put their own generation plant in order to run even a 10,000 square foot. My bigger question is, the only area you have is zone industrial as of right now is the DPW. Now, does the lake still own the lagoons area behind that?
Yes,
Because that's like another 20 acres, is it not?
it is, but there are restrictions on that.
I understand that today. 5 years from now, none of you might not even be setting up
The
there.
restrictions aren't based on council, it's based on the deed that was written by Maury when we purchased the property.
And which is what, along the same lines as the reason we're here, is because rules can be changed.
Yeah.
So that's where, I mean,
So right now,
like Mike said, we need to keep the door snug.
right now,
And I understand that we leave ourselves open for lawsuits and whatnot. And a government who just wants to shove things through. Again, which is wrong. But yes, we have a say in it, but these people that build these places and the companies that own the windmills. These farmers get $1,000 per acre. That to lease it. So it's a minimum 40 acres for one windmill. That's $40,000 a month. But yet our electric bill's still on. It's along the same lines. They can afford to spend money. They'll throw as much money as they have to. And if we give them a crack, let them put in a 10,000 square foot building, they'll get the lagoon. Guaranteed. It has nothing to do with any of us, nothing to do with any of you. Nobody's pockets getting lined, none of that. It'll happen. They make it happen. I'm more concerned about down the road than I am today.
Right. Well, and
As
that's,
far as the water usage. They're the only one. So far that is going to recycle their water is saline. And I'm staying away from saline. I'm losing a lot of money, but I'm staying away from saline because I don't find anything to do with it. But they're supposed to be recycling their water. It's supposed to be a self-contained system.
But it's the water.
But eventually it's gonna have to get changed out. They can't reuse that. They can only reuse it so long. And it's gonna dissipate because it gets hot and cold, so it's gonna dissipate, so now they gotta add some more. So. It's all a big catch-22. If we can keep that door as tight as we possibly can. It'd be the greatest for the whole community, honestly, and I've lived here almost my entire life. My parents have lived over on River Road for 50 years. I've lived here at the lake in the house that we're in now. We've lived there for 17 years. We lived in another house over on Queensway for 7 years before we moved into the one we have now. So, this is my whole world. I like it here. It's quiet and it's somewhat rural, but somewhat closer to the city life. Like you got closer neighbors. And we've been blessed with good neighbors, so. I don't wanna see anybody move out because of these data centers. Or whatever, the windmills are close enough. That's- Now they let, my brother-in-law actually was a big advocate against the windmills going in Rosebud. They, now the windmills are in and the solar fields are in. I just found out tonight before we came here. That the Mount Pleasant Commission, or Isabella County Commission, excuse me. It's already going through the approval process to put a battery plant right on Crawford Road where the cemeteries are between Rosebush. And Wayman Road. So that's where I'm getting at, they're gonna make it happen. And they can afford it. It's mostly like LG, they're doing a huge one in Lansing right now, battery plant. Now, Ford's doing a couple big blue oval projects all over the place, I just came off one of those in Marshall. And that place is a mile long and a half a mile wide. It's huge. It took 15 minutes just to walk from your truck to the door. It's ridiculous. And I don't think any of you want any of that out here either, honestly, but.
No.
Again, if we could keep that door. Almost latched and locked. And still keep our butts covered, then perfect.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're doing.
That's what this
It's
is.
exactly what.
I get it, man, I'm not trying to slang you guys.
And I understand.
I hope I don't come across
your
that.
We also live here and are members of this community too,
Yeah,
well, yeah. I think people forget that sometimes because they think that we're an entity that doesn't care about the community.
Yeah.
We're all community members here too.
Right.
We all live here and have our families here just like you all do. I know it seems different sometimes when we're up here and we're voting on things that, are changing things for all of us, but, and I don't understand all that. My thoughts on the concern about the water, okay? Before they can be even presented to us, for us to discuss. Well, first and foremost, if we exclude it completely and make it tight, that opens us for litigation, and then those companies with deep pockets just get to walk in because no one law
Right.
is going to side with us if we've tried to exclude them entirely. Because that's against business rights, if you will.
which.
Well, that's where the
It's
pad is.
kind of ridiculous, like you own your home, it's up to you who you let in your home.
Right, but
And I understand,
This is,
the law is
this is
written
not a
for
private
everyone.
thing though. This is a municipality. This is, this is not like a private entity. Lake Isabella is not, like we can just say who can come in and this and that. We can, but we open ourselves for litigation at that point. But let's say, somebody does apply and comes in. The groundwater, that's a huge concern. I've heard it from several states.
Oh, he tried to lake right up.
Possibly, I don't know, I would have to,
They will.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, yes, that is a concern, but hear me out now, they have to submit all this to Eagle and get permits, and that is gonna be part of it. Where the water source is coming from, what happens to the water after it's used, is it filtered, is it trucked out of here, all that. And once they have all that and have it approved and it's legal, with all their permits, then it would come to us. And we, as the council, who would have to have a public hearing for you all to know what's going on. And we go through this all again, after having all the facts of what's going on and all the approvals, we would still have the option to say, no, it doesn't coincide with our master plan, or it's too close, or it's too much groundwater, it's going to affect the lake. So, in my understanding and opinion, this is just simply to give the village legal standing so that we have a leg to stand on if we have to fight to keep something like that out of here.
Right.
And you said yourself, these companies have deep pockets. So if we don't give ourselves that legal
Extra
standing,
players.
so if we do not give ourselves that legal standing of having something on the books that is not exclusionary, we may not have a legal standing because then we are being exclusionary. And that doesn't go well in court. There was
Right.
many, like, hundreds of cases here in Michigan alone over the exact same thing, but with windmills and solar farms. And if you're in the industry, you're aware of this, or
Oh,
you
yeah,
could be.
very well aware, it's a double-edged sword for me, it puts food on my table,
Yeah,
but.
and I
I
understand that, but
backside
what
at the
I'm
same
getting
time.
at though is this is not us welcoming in these things. I
understand.
can't speak for everybody here, I don't want them here. But this is not, like I said, us, and I've heard that sometimes, it's you guys, it's not that we're advocating to try and get these here, make it easy for them to get in here. We're trying to protect the village and give us a legal standing so that we can prevent things from coming in like that if we as the people don't want to hear. And that's why we have open forums and, stuff so that we can hear the concerns and wants of the community. And I love seeing groups of people here, even sometimes it gets heated and everybody wants their say, but I love it because we are supposed to be representing you guys. And when I say we, I'm not talking about just the planning commission, but also the board, the council. And there's a dual layer in that. Okay, this board can't do anything. Carte blanche. They, or we, excuse me, will go over things, listen to your guys' input, and then we will give our recommendation to the council. And then the council will discuss it. And in something like this, they would probably have an open forum so that they also can hear from concerned citizens, which we want. We love that. We don't get it nearly as much. I made the comment joking earlier about, oh, it's almost as good as the chickens. That was not meant to be, rude. That I love hearing from you guys because I don't know how to do my job. If you guys don't come in here and tell me what you want, not without going door to door and being weird and creeping people
Well,
out,
if you don't come here and say what you wanna say, then you have no right to complain later.
No,
Yeah.
that's correct.
You
But
know,
we do want you to know that we're doing our best. No one wants it here. You're talking 10,000 square foot. And you're
I'd rather have a
talking,
Walmart.
you're talking that, data centers, 10,000 square foot.
Then I was a union member, right?
If there was another bank brought in here and, say some type of healthcare or something. That takes care of your 10,000 square foot, more or less. You talked about the money they have. That's one of the main reasons I don't want them to, for us to completely keep, go all the way and say they're not here because money talks. Then they'll sue you and the village does not have the money to fight these guys
Exactly.
in court. So if we go and we give them that little bit,
The door has the one.
the door has the word.
well,
So it's pretty obvious we're
What
all
about
on
the-
the same
the-
page.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go
ahead.
It's pretty obvious we're all on the same page. What do you need from us to empower you to keep that door as closed as tight as possible
Oh,
without?
just what you're doing, your guys' input, and what we're trying to do is relay that this is why this is like this. Like I said, to make it exclusionary is actually a negative thing for us because it doesn't give us any legal standing.
Right.
And as far as going to court, do we have litigation insurance? The village?
Up to a point, yes.
Right, okay, I'm not asking for details, but so the court thing isn't really necessarily that important unless you're talking multi-billion dollar cases and stuff. It is, we don't want that, don't get me wrong.
I think it is.
Well, no, certainly, like I said, we don't want that, but I'm saying we have that protection, so if we are sued and have to fight. We have litigation insurance that will help that, so it doesn't just come from, the village having to fund the bill and now we're bankrupt or something horrible. So, and that's levels of protection that, the commission and the board. And the village has in place to help protect us in cases like that.
Okay.
Okay, so ma'am, can we get your name? I know that. you
Kimberly
had
Cook,
something to say.
392 South Cowater Road.
Did you have anything else to add? Or was that, I had seen you with your hand a couple times.
No, I just wanted to make that statement because sitting here, we are all on the same page. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comments on our neighborhood site are several already insinuated that that the board wanted it and was going that direction of
It would be much,
assuming
this would be much more
that-
lenient if that was the case.
yes,
You know,
assuming
If
that,
anybody reads it, this would be much
but
more
it's,
lenient if
it's
that was.
pretty obvious. Everyone is on the same page.
Is it possible to shrink the
Hold on.
minimum size?
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm a little confused. So did I hear someone say about Lowell and they rejected it? How do they get away with that? What did they have to have attorneys and go to court to fight this? And I know I have heard of other communities who have rejected this and closed the door and said, no, we're
Well,
not
they
having this. Why-
didn't reject it. They're just letting data centers come in.
Oh, okay, someone had said, and maybe it wasn't at this meeting, that I had heard that other communities had said, no, we're not doing that, we're absolutely refusing. And how did they get away with that? Why can't we just shut the door and say, no, we're,
They would get away with it until the data center wanted to come in there, and then the data center would sue them like they did Celine. And because it's exclusionary and they have no basis for why they don't want them in there, other than they just don't want them in there. And the courts sided with the data center. And then they could make it, we could absolutely say 100% no data centers at all. But then the court would come in and say, actually, because you're exclusionary, now we're gonna go ahead and allow this data center to come in because you chose to be exclusionary, and that was against the rules of the state of Michigan per the zoning enabling act.
but
So-
you do have that right to.
But we do
exclude
not.
certain
No.
businesses
No.
that
No.
don't
No.
like that.
We do not by the state of Michigan said we cannot.
But not exclusionary.
Yeah, all we can do is make our ordinances to where data centers are gonna look at us and go, yeah, we don't really want to go there.
Thank you.
Can we get your name and address, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn Fraser, 1005 El Camino Grande.
Thank you. Did you have something next, Josh?
Yeah, just, has anybody reached out to any of the communities that already have those and found out what the ramifications are? And maybe they can help us put the nails in the right part of the coffin. We can't nail it shut.
A lot of this is actually done off of the actual court documents from Celine.
I'm not talking about just Celine, I'm talking, there's several, there's one.
Right, but the
Wasatch,
court
there's one-
documents that Celine, when the court said, this is why we were gonna grant this data center to be able to come in there, but yes, we've taken data ordinances from other places and what they're talking about, as well as what the MML had put out for all municipalities who are facing this issue. We've looked into that and taken that into consideration.
But I'm talking about the existing ones and the pitfalls that they're coming up with that we may be able to head off.
Yeah, and you can find that information as well as all of us can on the simple Google search. And I don't say that to be snide, but seriously, that
AI's
information
got
is
it all.
readily available.
When they're right.
It will give you the pros and the cons and, different perspectives from different
My
people.
phone says, on my AI on my phone says, on the bottom, it says. Information may be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, in the essence of time, I'm going back here in the corner, please, ma'am.
Walters, 1063 Circle Drive. In writing the ordinance for this, where did you extrapolate your language? What criteria was used to write the ordinance, and did you maybe consult with any legal assistance? How can we be more specific in this ordinance language without getting into trouble? Like you say, with being exclusionary.
So this is just the first step, and once the planning commission gets the ordinance where they feel they want it to be, they will then recommend it to the council. The council will then get the ordinance, and then that's when they would send it off to our attorney for legal review. And they can also then amend the ordinance and tweak it and put things in based on their research. And then they would introduce it after they make all of the corrections they want to make and all the amendments they want to make. They would then introduce it at a council meeting. And then the following meeting, they would have a public hearing, just like we're having now. And then at that point, they could either move to accept the ordinance or move to send the ordinance back to the planning.
And now when we're talking about the village boundary and X amount of distance, I think my property is the village boundary, because I am right on the Cook Farm, who is now leasing to Sack Potatoes and doing a commercial potato operation and crop dusting every single week, sometimes several times a week. So that right there is a major
Matt,
concern for me, because they're crop dusting 100 feet away from my property line, so. The boundary and the distance of potential data center, this is very concerning for me, because we've already got a crop dusting operation going on.
But keep in mind that the crop dusting. If I'm correct here, that is outside the village limits.
Right,
So our 2 miles. Doesn't go beyond, like we could say, okay, 2 miles past the village limits. No,
It can't exceed the
it
limitation.
can't go without being in the village limits. So unfortunately,
what are they gonna do with that farm property next? Are we gonna have wind turbines springing up because they don't want, you know what I mean?
unfortunately, that's not a village thing.
Right.
That would be at your Broomfield Township. And I urge all of you, please reach out to, if you're not, if you border Sherman or Broomfield, watch their websites, call, find out when their meetings are, go to their meetings. A lot of it says that we just have to, put this in the newspaper. Well, most people don't get the newspaper anymore. The village, we put everything on our website. We have started to try to put most everything on our Facebook, although I have to tell you, it is just me doing it. So sometimes I may not get the information out there as quickly, but it is always on our website. We try to make it as transparent and put as much information as we can out there so people can read it, come to their own conclusions, email or call us with their questions, and come to our meetings. But people don't normally go to their township meetings, and these things are being discussed without residents knowing that it's actually being discussed. So I urge all of you, please keep coming to the planning commission, keep coming to the village council, and contact your townships and go to your township meetings. Even if you don't make a difference in what your board is deciding at that time, at least you're getting your voice heard. And if somewhere down the line, something comes back, they may be able to use your voice as, this was stated, it was brought up, were made aware.
Don't you think, Isabella, the residents has a say on, let's say, I'm just drawing a reference, let's say they approve a data center and it falls on to the bottom where the resident has to vote.
No,
That would not work.
no, because
So residents has no say then.
the residents at the special land use, public hearing would be able to voice their concern just like now. But we can't, the Michigan doesn't allow voting. If we voted, again, an ordinance would then have to go on a ballot, on like your November ballot or your April ballot, because that's the only fair way to do it. Because if we did it this way, we wouldn't, it'd be very hard to prove if you actually lived here. Or if you just bought property. I mean, that it opens a very large can of worms, and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act specifically says this is how it's supposed to be done. They give us the rules and that we have to follow in order to create and mandate ordinances.
And the one thing to watch, like on 1075 as well, this again is these land speculators. We must get a dozen calls a week trying to buy our properties. I mean, it's insane. I got them on the phone, lose my number, forget it, stop. I'll donate to tunnels of towers. You gotta watch who you're selling your properties to.
Right.
Cause talk is around here, the property has just gone stupid. For example, the back of ours, there's 1.93 acres. The kid lost its taxes. I tried to buy it. It went to auction with auction fees. And taxes, it went from 18,063, 1.93. It hit river, about 900 foot of river, but it's a swamp. They can't do nothing with it, but they bought it. So watch who you sell your properties to.
At what point do they do an environmental impact statement?
That would be during the special land use
Yeah.
permit.
When did you find out about it? You as a group?
We started talking about data centers in February.
So there has, this is still in its infancy.
Yes.
Better not at all.
And it's not because you were approached,
Correct.
right?
We wanted to be proactive. The prior village manager knew that this was up and coming. He knew what, our state was trying to do. And he wanted to be proactive and make sure the village of Lake Isabella was protected, from being harmed by this.
What carries more weight, the will of the people or some exclusionary law?
State your question again, please.
I don't know, so I don't.
No, what was the question again?
State your question.
What carries more weight? The will of the people? Or the exclusionary law?
With the state of Michigan, the exclusionary law.
Yes, sir.
That hurts.
I'm Brad Law, 5100 Sunset. I'm not a resident of Lake Isabella, but I'm a riparian property owner within 2 miles. I'm asking that you consider a modification to section 7, the environmental protection. The way it's currently written, the ordinance would allow a data center to discharge heated wastewater into the Chippewa River downstream of the Lake Isabella Dam. Michigan DNR has spent considerable amount of public funds to stock the Chippewa River with both trout and walleye, neither species of which would do well in artificially warmed water. I'm therefore requesting that you replace the word tributaries with the term connecting waterways in section 7, thereby protecting both the inlets and the outlets of Lake Isabella from detrimental environmental impacts.
Absolutely. Very good.
Very good.
Okay. I don't see any more hands, so at this time.
I'm Doug Harwell, 1020 Crown Point. Back to the question of the 2 townships, is there anybody in the village that goes to meetings as part of their position to hear what they're saying that might affect this?
At this time, no.
You used to?
Again, it's just me. So,
How the army.
All of us within the, have multiple hats.
yeah,
Jessica and I believe every member of the council wear multiple hats and are parts of different, like I myself am on 4 different commissions. Because we just simply don't have enough people to cover everything, so we do the best we can and we all take on extra work and stuff to try to cover that, but.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment at 8:18.
all right, before we move forward though, I did email you guys prior to the meeting. And I wanted to, after conducting a little more research, I wanted to talk to you guys about putting in some extra wording under, where is it? Section 5, the second line or the second paragraph, even though it's only 1 sentence, it says water intensive cooling systems are strongly discouraged. I would like to expand that to say water intensive cooling systems are strongly discouraged, and applicants shall identify the proposed cooling technology and provide documentation demonstrating that the cooling system will not adversely impact local water resources or public infrastructure. Also in section 5 at the end, I would like to add that the planning commission or village council may require additional technical studies prepared by qualified professionals at the applicant's expense, including but not limited to water demand analysis, groundwater impact studies, electrical infrastructure analysis, traffic studies, acoustical studies, environmental assessments, emergency response evaluations, wastewater analysis, and any other studies reasonably necessary to determine compliance with this ordinance and to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of Lake Isabella.
I agree. I'm good. Yep.
So if, well, so if we wanted to add that, and then the comment of tributaries to connecting waterways, would it be okay to keep tributaries in there and just put a comma and add in connecting waterways? Or would it be redundant?
I think that would be redundant, but
Okay.
it's up to you.
All right, so if you guys wanted to, we could remove tributaries and replace it with connecting waterways in that section. And then, on the decommissioning, did we want to change the may to shall?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So if you are satisfied with the ordinance that's presented to you, you could recommend the ordinance with the amendments that we made tonight, as stated, to the village council. If you would like to go over this one more time and bring it back next month with the changes and revisit it before you send it off to the council, you may do that as well. If you'd like to look at, the minimum setbacks and increasing those, we could do that tonight. Or we could talk about it, at our next meeting. We did have a suggestion of possibly reducing the 10,000 square foot. If that's something you guys would want to entertain, we could entertain that.
If you drop that 10,000 square foot, you're talking about the small data center can be a bank.
Yes.
Does that prevent a bank or a business coming in that has that type of data from coming in also, right?
How many square feet is that?
If we were to drop that square feet.
Well, the Isabella Bank building isn't 10,000 square feet, but it's also not on 5 acres and it's not zoned industrial, so they wouldn't be able to do it. A bank isn't in an industrial area.
And also.
It's not it's not part of what we allow in an industrial area. We wouldn't allow a bank in an industrial area. A bank would only be allowed, I believe, in the business district.
And my question there is, it's just curious, so if a bank is considered a small,
Bank servers, which would be,
Industrial bank.
so like Mr. Walter said, I mean, he's got stuff in his house that technically could be considered a data center.
What I have is a server and data centers, those are different.
Right.
A server, the reason, my server, yeah, you have to define what a data center is and what a server is. So like for instance, like server, I have 2 servers at my store, 2 servers at my home. My servers talk to one another, which is customer information that when I repair the computer, I upload it to my server, so nobody can get a hold of that. Now, the data center is something like they're using like the AI stuff. Also, you don't have to use AI on a data center for it to be a data center. Like Amazon can have somebody can be working for Amazon and using their backroom with a couple data servers in there. So you have to define what a data center is and what a server is.
Well, we did define it. We define a data center as a building, structure, campus, or portion thereof primarily used to house computer systems, servers, telecommunication equipment, networking infrastructure, data storage systems, cloud computing infrastructure, cryptocurrency mining equipment, blockchain processing equipment, AI processing systems or associated mechanical and electrical infrastructure for the processing, storage, transmission, or management of digital information.
Okay, so if the building can be up to 10,000 square feet,
So
what is the parameter?
when
And I'm at home and I want my little.
I'm sorry, no, we're not. Unfortunately, we're outside of public comment.
Okay.
And in essence of time, we really do need to keep with our agenda. I'm sorry. Any further discussion?
I think we should, have them redo it and a couple items in the next meeting. Let's sit down and look at what we call basically the finished product.
Yeah.
And go through it line by line.
My only other comment or concern would be.
Speak up a little more. Joe, can you speak up?
Yeah, my only concern would be that we were discussing basically making it more restrictive. Again, that just adds to the potential of exclusionary. When it comes down to it, we have to final say where this comes in. This is really just a legal protection, it's a legal standing. So the more restrictive that we make this, making it smaller buildings, making it larger setbacks, that makes it look in the part size more exclusionary, which does the village no good. In a legal standing, it's.
Thank you. Well, you can make it, yeah, unreasonable now. So you make it.
Yeah.
But it's just that we don't want 10,000 square feet because it's loading, so it has to be 7,500. We can absolutely move this to 7,500.
Well, we can
which is
also,
what I would.
we can also say if it's more than 500 square feet, it's not.
But that looks exclusion.
Well,
You have to be reasonable with
Well,
buildings.
and I think what's there already, especially given that there's only one potential property that is currently being used by the village and is part of our major infrastructure. I think that already covers it. Now, I'm not objecting to change. I just want you guys to think about the more restrictive you make something, the more exclusionary it looks. And if it's exclusionary and something goes to court, especially with a large corporation that has deep pockets and expensive attorneys, that could be a serious financial strain if we were to try to do it, or we could completely tie our hands and we just have to do what the state appellate says because we were too exclusive.
I'd like to know how many square feet. Can we find that out? Yeah. That would be a great help to me. I'm on board with Mr. Simon. I would like to have a little opportunity to review some of this.
Yes.
Before next month. So that we just know that we've heard all the comments, everybody has resonated on it. And then we can look at the final product that this address.
So we'll actually, if we want to go to just actual regular public comment now,
Okay.
this can be on anything.
We don't need to worry about the other ordinance.
We have this public comment for everybody, and then we'll get into existing business to go to.
Okay, I didn't realize you were still on. Okay, one final public comment session opened at 8:27.
And this is for anything you want to talk about, not just, yeah.
Anything else on your mind?
Yes.
Village business.
Well, kind of a question as to where to go from Kimberly Cook. I live on South Coldwater Road. And I have a large fronting of Coldwater Road. Have we ever thought about having a village speed limit? Because I'm here to tell you, I was down trimming trees. Yeah.
We don't know
CMO?
that.
Hold on.
It's a county road. Yeah, we have no say as far as the speed limit. and stuff like that.
What I can tell you is that we do have a dedicated officer that is starting with the Isabella County Sheriff's Department that'll be out here. That will be patrolling 3 times a week, so I'm hoping to see that reduced. They have talked about doing speed studies there. The unfortunate part about speed studies, and this is at the county level, and I mean, even
It
if we.
takes time.
It takes time, but if it wouldn't reduce the speed. It's like a percentage of whatever the speed limit is, and it could potentially.
The interesting
Because
thing,
I have 6 drives between all the farm. And I went and had goodies with the state police officers and gave them permission to sit in any one of the 6 driveways at any time. I would love to have them just sit there.
If you would like to
you
give me
look on
something in
Garmin?
writing that I can give our officer.
Okay,
That's what
I
was
can
gonna
do that.
say. We
But-
need to talk to put a sign up.
What I see so much of is golf carts coming off of Birdie, running down to out of bounds. kids on bikes. There's a young man that walks this route every morning and every night. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen a truck passing a vehicle. At the same time, they're going next to someone, a pedestrian on the side of the street.
Oh.
And I'm just waiting for, besides the fact that I clean up the mass portion of deer.
Oh,
Yeah, they just like to cross there at the swamp. I just,
put up a fake flat camera.
yeah. I just didn't know if there's. I don't know if we had any. Ability to have a say in the speed,
typical
at
where
least
we do
being
not.
45 through across the village properties.
We don't, because it's
Okay.
a county ran road, we have no jurisdiction over
It would be
it.
definitely something that you could go to the
Go to the
county
and ask
ask.
them to put
Okay,
speed limit signs up
Go to
and
the county road commission.
something like that. We're not asking them to change it.
Yeah, we can definitely ask for speed limit signs, but yeah, I mean, you could ask
And
them
no
to
pass.
reduce it. But most of the time they won't reduce it without a speed study, and we most definitely don't want a speed study.
okay,
Um,
okay.
Cause, and I could find where, I mean, we've had several discussions on this in here. I can find the actual verbiage of what happens with a speed study and get that to you. I just, off the top of my head, I remember that speed studies don't give us the
The
answers that we
result we're
want.
looking for.
Well,
It's the
right,
same as
right.
the bridge down here, you know,
Yeah.
signage. So there is signage there. But they just go be past the signage and pull off side of the road.
Yeah,
And that's a bad spot too.
yeah, I'm just waiting for somebody to get hit.
But it's something that would definitely be encouraged as the people and the residents out here to voice their concern to the county.
I just see so many UTVs and ATVs and side by sides and golf carts.
Golf carts, I believe, are not allowed on there, so that should stop once they start getting.
There's some enforcement. Okay.
I 100% agree, because last year I walked to work, and so I would come up Bonanza and I have to either cross right there, but I still have to walk from Bonanza to Clubhouse. And, you know, it's not fun when people aren't paying attention,
Yeah,
so.
Go to the county.
okay.
And you have our.
See
Yeah,
where else you can.
They took off my mailbox last winter, both 6x6 poles and left part of the putts of the vehicle, so. Yeah, they had no denying it.
Any other public comments, concerns, questions? All set? Okay, we're gonna close
I'll
out the
send you
agenda.
something, Jessica.
8:32.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Did you get it? Yes, I did. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Move on to existing business.
Okay, existing business one, proposed ordinance 2026-03, the park entrance adjacent lots. So any attempt.
We gotta vote on it.
Yep, so if you like it the way it is, you can make the motion to recommend proposed ordinance 2026-03 park entrance adjacent lots to the village council.
I'll make a motion.
I would support Sam.
Great, all those in favor to send it on?
I think it needs to be rolled.
Oh, I have to do one at a time.
Have you never done it?
I've never done it though,
All right, then voice vote it is.
and it was unanimous.
Yes.
So moving on to existing business number 2. I know we've already had a little bit of discussion and we've decided to move to next month. Do we have any more discussion this evening? Or we'll plan
So-
to look at the,
Just so I'm clear, you would like me to make the changes we talked about, and then in the meantime, you guys are gonna, and I'll send it
I'll
out.
email it so we can
Yep,
review.
so
and
you can
come
review
back.
it and come back with any other modifications you may want. And then at that meeting, we will then discuss
Discuss
whether we,
it.
yep, okay.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
Would that require another public hearing?
Okay, existing business number 3, housing discussion.
All right, so last month you guys asked that I bring something back. So the purpose of this agenda item is to continue your discussion regarding the current and future housing needs within Lake Isabella. I have prepared a map. I had it in your packet, but I also printed it out. And it kind of talks about the things that I saw when I looked at our planning commission or our master plan, the housing action plan that you guys adopted, the residential marketing analysis that was done, the middle housing study that MMDC did, the creation of our brownfield redevelopment, and the possibility of, partnering with Isabella County for a land bank. I put kind of all of that together and just kind of came up with a few ideas on what I thought would be what you were looking for. We talked about minimum dwelling sizes. The minimum dwelling size establishes the smallest house that may be constructed within a zoning district. The issue with housing sizes is affordability. We had talked about possibly lowering the LR1 backlots to 1,000 square feet instead of the 1,200. We talked about attached garages in the LR1 district. Right now, they are mandated to be attached, but in the LR2 district, they can be attached or detached. Having it attached could potentially increase costs. So we had discussed possibly allowing detached, whether, they have to still have a garage, one or the other, but it does allow them, the choice. A breezeway, we have a strict, what we consider a breezeway. It has to have all the walls. It has to be structurally part of the dwelling. Do we want to, it creates an unnecessary cost for what a breezeway is usually intended for. Do we want to expand that definition? Do we want to allow it to be maybe just a roof line? It doesn't have to have 4 walls, or do we want it to still have the walls, but it, can be loosely attached or not attached, as long as it, should be, I should say, not structurally attached. I mean, it will look like it's attached, but it's not structurally part of the structure.
If we're allowing detached garages, if that's the way we go, it defeats it would do, well, I guess that would be LR1.
Right.
The whole thing on attached breezeway.
Correct.
So basically, we're just going to add that to the definition of a attached garage. Basically saying that it's still an attached garage, it's attached by a structural roof line or whatever we decide that we're gonna define that as. Is that my understanding?
If we want to allow detached garages, I think we can leave the breezeway.
Right,
The
well,
way it
that's
is,
what,
it's
that's
not
what I'm
gonna
asking,
matter.
'cause it sounds like we're just changing the definition of attached to circumvent, opening it up for detached garages is what it sounds like to me.
Right, if we're not going to allow detached garages, that's when we would want to definitely look at amending what a breezeway definition is.
Now this happened before my time, but do any of you that have been here for a while recall why it was made,
We spent a long time. on
I understand that, but do you remember in a nutshell why, the council and then the commission here decided that, it was, necessary or advantageous to only have attached garages at that time?
Well, I'm talking about the breezeway, when we spent a lot of time with that. But the attached garage in LR1 is because of the size. I think the size of the lots was the conversation.
Which they're bigger than the LR2, so you would think.
Yeah,
Are they-
well, that's why I'm
are
asking
they
that
LR3?
question, because it just doesn't seem to make sense to me, and that's why I'm asking that,
Right.
and I'm relatively new, so I do love getting information from. Farzad, I know you've been on here for a long while, so when I can get information from you guys, that remember what why,
Sure.
And I know
It was an aesthetics or something.
yeah,
I'm thinking it was aesthetics.
Yeah.
You know, because attached or detached, we have stuff that's carte blanche across the board, doesn't matter which zone you're in. I.e. setbacks and such, that
Does the
that dictate
breezeway-
and mandate what, you know, where and how it can be built.
Does the breezeway then go with the footprint of the house and expand the footprint of the house?
Well, currently it says it must be structurally attached, so that means it has to be physically attached to, like, let's say we say just, they could just have a roof line going from the garage to their side door, and we could call that attached. But it has to be structurally attached. That means it would have to be legged in or connected to, the roof joists or,
Right.
and to me, I just don't understand. That doesn't make sense. Why? It's still a detached garage, it's just got a roof over it. Now, I'm gonna do that in mine, even though I'm not required, just because I don't want to have to walk from the garage to the house and get rained on.
Yeah.
But to require it within zoning just seems silly and overreaching to me.
I think we're overreaching when we
You know.
end up and we try to, unless it's. Because I think it's aesthetics and today's. I mean, we stipulate enough on. How a garage attached or not. What it has to be built out of, the way it's gotta look,
How many windows?
how many this, how many
Yeah,
points.
It is quite restrictive.
That say that you have to have it attached. Whether it's attached to the house or whether you have a breezeway, I would think that would be up to the owner. I aesthetically, I don't think that it makes that big of a difference if it's
Well, it only,
connected to the house or not.
it only
It
does it
wasn't
with carte
aesthetic
blanche,
we
and
talked
they want all the
about. What
houses
was
to
it?
match with
It
uniform.
wasn't aesthetics. We did talk about aesthetics, but it was a whole bunch more stuff than that.
Well, that's why I'm asking for your guys' recollection on that.
What is the purpose of having one of those, basically?
Having one of
The
what?
purpose of having
Having
a
the
breezeway.
Oh, so that we can call
So
it
you can
attached.
call it attached.
Yeah.
And
So,
what
if
our
that's the-
question is why does it have to be attached?
Well,
What
Or
was
that's
the,
my question.
yeah.
what
It-
was,
mine is
the-
similar.
hold on, what was the villages, or what was the planning commission's reasons for requiring LR1 to have an attached garage to begin with?
What year did that come about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm more concerned with reasonings versus timeline, it was
Right, but-
before my time, but
I think it was before my time and Leo's time, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah,
at.
I mean,
I'm trying
this
to
was
figure
a
out
long time.
How long ago was
And
this?
honestly, I can
Before
tell
all
you,
of
the
us.
reason was
aesthetics.
aesthetics.
Yeah, I know that was very important early on.
Yes,
I have done a lot of
And
research on
the
the
garage-
history of Lake Isabella.
the garage part itself was huge because we had so much. We had so many toys and, everybody wanted the toys put away. So we had found that a lot of buildings or houses, I should say, a lot of houses in Lake Isabella were built without a garage. And the way that the homes were built or placed on the lot made it to where a garage could not come on the lot at all. So moving forward, they made it to where all homes in the LR1 district had to have an attached garage so that at least there's something that, and the LR2 district, because the lots are smaller, they may not be able to get the home and garage to fit lengthwise, or widthwise. So that's where they said, okay, well, it can be attached or detached.
Yeah.
At
You know,
that
there-
point right there is what I'm saying is I don't understand if it's okay in one spot. Whether it's because so what you're telling me is the reasoning on LR1 is because there's more room. Or you can say the reasoning LR2 doesn't have to is because at the time there was less room. Whether there's less room or more room, if you can do it in one spot, you can't do it in the other. I see that senseless.
And that's why it's being brought back to the board.
Right, well, I know, but to elaborate more on that, I think it's a simple decision if we wanna do. Keep it to where it's gotta be a attached garage or make it where it can be either or, it's that simple, I think it's.
I think that would be the
I think it's-
first thing.
Yeah, I think it's a waste of time and energy and an overreach for us to sit and, discuss how a potential new home builder is gonna want to. Build their structure, because that's restrictive and that's going to turn some people's nose away. The tighter our zoning is as far as stuff like that goes, the less appealing it can be for new folks coming to the area.
Especially for starter homes.
Absolutely,
You want starter
And
homes.
like I said, we already
You don't
have
make it
things in
work.
place, i.e. the setbacks and everything else that will mandate where and if people can do. even with an attached garage, there, you know, we have setbacks, how far it has to be from the edge of the property line, so we already have what we thought to be reasonable, articulable expectations of zoning and building.
So if it's a detached garage, we're gonna have to determine the set, so we're supposed to be set like an auxiliary structure. We're gonna have to
Absolutely,
Determine,
and that's no different than we do
in the
now.
planning, we're gonna have to determine where that goes. So what's the difference between a detached garage and an auxiliary building?
I would say
An
I would say
auxiliary building
nothing.
is like a shed.
No, so I have concrete floor on it and everything.
So
it's big.
So there's already,
So
the
we
village
have,
already tells you whether it's a detached garage, what you have to have. Or a attached garage, so if you say auxiliary building or detached garage, right now they're the same, right?
No,
No.
so you have a shed, which can be up to 240
We're
square
not
feet.
talking about sheds.
Hold
we're
on,
talking
hold
about-
on, hold on.
hold on,
You have a shed, the definition is 240 square feet or less.
right.
There is and then your garage, I believe, has to be 400 square feet or more. So what,
And
even
the shed can't be,
cannot, correct,
cannot be
like, we
structurally.
have a size
Yeah.
Well,
window there.
We're not talking
It
about
can
a
be
shed
permanent.
here. We're talking about the garage, the auxiliary structure versus the garage.
I guess what is
We
it?
might as well-
That's what I'm saying, that's the
We
difference
don't-
between
I
an
don't
auxiliary structure
We
and
have an auxiliary structure.
an
in the
auxiliary
ordinance
structure
that-
and a detached
I'm-
garage. What's the
We
difference?
figured out where it goes on the lot.
Why do
An
you have,
auxiliary structure, or if you wanna call it a detached garage.
Do we
We have the
definition of
zoning where
auxiliary
it has to
structure
go
in our
on the
zoning?
lot.
Okay, this point
We
is
don't-
mute, we don't need to discuss it any further.
Well, I like to discuss it, okay?
Well, I'm
I
saying.
mean, if you need to go, go.
No, sir.
it wouldn't necessarily be an auxiliary garage
We don't
unless,
define it, we only define garage, we don't,
That's-
in our
so if
ordinance,
you-
That's
it's
the point I'm
defined
making.
specifically as a garage, so.
so maybe what he's saying is like if there was already a garage there, then it'd be auxiliary.
That's how
Well,
I'm
it's
getting.
still a
It'd be
garage.
auxiliary, but if
You
you
mean the
don't,
secondary?
Right.
there
So
you
we define that already in our ordinance as well, how many you're allowed to have on a property.
Right,
Yep, that's
go.
already.
Yep, and that's the square footage. That's what I was getting at, is it already
Yeah,
tells you
so
what.
depending on how many lots you have and or how many acres you have, it defines how many category 1 accessory structures you can have, how many category 3
Right.
accessory structures you can have, and how many category 3 accessory structures.
and that's what defines sheds, garages,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning to be snide, I was just saying, if we don't have that defined as a structure that we allow in the village. You know, it's a moot point, you know, the garage is not an auxiliary structure, then, you know,
So what is the difference in building wise from a garage to an auxiliary structure? What I'm saying
You can't
is,
have two detached garages, can we?
Yes,
Yeah,
there are,
they can.
yes.
Yeah, some lots, but what we're saying here,
than one lot.
what we're saying here.
or enough acreage to meet the setbacks that already dictate whether.
Is
they
there a
can be
requirement
Yeah, they-
What
on
we're-
a certain size, like an LR2 or LR3?
What we're saying right now in the LR2 district, to build a new home, you have to bring in a new home with an attached or detached garage. The attached garage has to, I think, be 282 square feet. A detached garage has to be 484 square feet. If you would live in the LR1 district, you have to have an attached garage of at least 282 square feet. What removing that would do is now we're gonna say, okay, if you want to build in the LR1 district, you can bring your home in. You either have to have an attached garage of at least 282 square feet, or you can have a detached garage of at least 484 square. feet.
so it's required to
It's
have
still
a
required to have-
garage.
They're an attached or detached garage. We're just making it to where somebody could have a detached garage if they chose.
And at that point, if it's detached, I personally don't think that dictating where they can put it, other than the offsets that's already in place for a auxiliary or a second, what would it be called? A detached, you got an attached garage, and then if you were to put another building up that's excess of the shed, as far as square footage, what is that called? A detached, a utility garage, or
we consider it still a detached garage, like, it's
So
just,
you have a garage and then a detached garage,
I
so.
think we're talking about accessory dwelling units, isn't that what,
Yeah.
the extra unit is called an
Yeah.
accessory dwelling unit?
Then
Yeah.
like a
Is that,
gazebo,
we have, necessity?
So the accessory,
Talk about regular buildings.
the accessory
But an
dwelling,
enclosed gazebo. I've
Or a
seen those.
shed.
that would be more like a shed.
Like
That,
a-
that's a shed, that's not.
so
an
I'm pretty
auxiliary.
certain every lot out here now is allowed to have two sheds.
Two, you know,
As long as they have a house on there, they're allowed to have two sheds.
two sheds and
An
and
attached
attached and a detached.
Not everybody is allowed to have a detached unless they have two lots.
Yeah, there are two. Oh, yep. But there is certain placement on the detached garage that you have to be within that property, right? So the basic setbacks, I would think that would be fine rather than adding more to make it move, make sure that it's close to the house, but not, I would think that we'd be able to. I would be one to say detached garage and it matches the auxiliary setbacks, not dictating that it has to be, it can be detached, but it's gotta be within 10 feet of your house or something like that.
We already have that in there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, even the
Yeah.
secondary ones has to be a minimum of like 10 feet or.
certain distance.
I know we
property
can
line,
do,
certain
we
distance from
can
existing
do our own
dwelling.
research, but is there any way that we can look at the ordinance as it is now? So it says on there what it requires, and you don't have to do it right now, because on each one of these, I think if we're talking about reducing the square footage, we need to say, okay, here's apples, this is what it is. This size of lot, LR1, LR2, and we're talking about reducing it to 1,000. That's a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
But then we go to the next one about detached and attached garages. Here you can have an attached, here you can have two attached, here you.
Well, this is specifically just talking about the LR1. Which it's required, like right now it is 100% required. LR1 districts have to have an attached garage to build a home.
Is LR1 the only district that requires it to be attached? We got 5 districts.
Every district requires it to be attached except for the LR2 district.
So
So this
we would actually be changing all of them
Yes,
to match the LR2.
yes.
But right now, the workaround in all of the other districts is the attached breezeway.
No, that's something we're talking about potentially adding to, basically allow people to do a detached garage and call it a detached garage.
I
No,
think we already
no,
have that.
no.
Joe, that
we-
is correct. That
We
is
have that
correct.
already.
Right now, we have a breezeway already in there.
Okay,
Which is why the new beautiful home that's on El Camino
Yes,
has it,
but
because
it
the way
was
they had
whether
to
the
set that on their
foundation,
lot.
whether you could have that attachment. Whether, without it actually fundamentally being attached, like
That one,
foundation.
right, that one had to be permanently foundation, the whole 9 yards
Right.
attached.
but part of our discussion was making it where, that's where I was getting it from, is that if we, if we have a walkway or a breezeway. Then we can consider that attached, that's where I was getting that, that's where I was saying that, because we talked about this second or third time we talked. about it.
Yes,
Yes,
but
and it's
the
already in
whole,
place,
the
but
whole point would be
do we want to remove it?
If we're
not
gonna
even to
do,
move it, we still have to keep it in there so that if people want breezeways, right? Because a lot of people do want a breezeway from their home to their garages.
Well, and
But we
anybody
could
can do
make
that.
it, we could reduce it to just being a sidewalk. And, a roof or whatever the case may be. A big part of an attached garage and a detached garage is a detached garage. I believe is less expensive on your homeowner's insurance. But people still want to have a breezeway. It doesn't matter if it's attached or not at that point.
Right,
but it's not a requirement, right? If it was,
If-
if it was
If it
detached,
was detached and you guys made the recommendation to require either an attached or detached garage, then they wouldn't need a breezeway unless they wanted to, in that which case you could then make your breezeway ordinance a little less, or your breezeway requirements less restrictive and more aesthetic.
You can always add.
So if they want a breezeway, they could, but we would say, okay, well, you have this detached garage, matches our ordinance. If you wanna do a breezeway, you
given-
can,
You're giving the homeowner a little more room to be able to put in
Yes.
what they want, not
yes.
dictate what
Okay.
they have.
And
to do.
again, cost is a big factor.
Is there anything right now that would restrict, like my house, you're familiar with my house? If I wanna build a roof line down that ramp on the side of my house that attaches to the back of that garage. Is there anything saying that I can't do that now?
No, because you're an LR2 district, I believe. So that is different. You would still be required,
I'm talking about just simply attaching it to the attached garage, you know, I mean, I know that we're talking different district, but. But I mean, that's basically what we're discussing, and so I'm
you
misunderstanding,
misunderstand.
okay?
The whole reason of the breezeway in the ordinance as it stands is to be 100% structurally part of both the detached garage and the home, to then make it an attached garage.
Right, and that's what I said initially, and I, you know, was that we're basically trying to use that to redefine attached garage.
Yes,
You know, so I'm not misunderstanding it.
yes, no,
No,
No.
no.
So like I said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that's why I'm voicing this, because, you know, I don't ever understand everything all the time, and, you know. So basically, are we just discussing whether we can have attached garages there or detached garages there?
No, what we're discussing is whether we go one step further. We can discuss it that way and then say, okay, it's detached, or you can put a breezeway in, we can make it still that you have to have attached garage,
Right,
but then what's attached? Can it just be the building structure, or does it have to be foundation and everything?
right,
That's the route you would go that way.
right.
Or you say, you don't have to have it attached,
Right.
you can have it detached, and that would take the other stuff off the table.
but
right?
if you want a breezeway, we can then lessen what our ordinance requires of a breezeway to make it to where if you just want a sidewalk and a roof,
Like a covered porch.
a covered
Just a
porch,
covered porch.
it doesn't have to be
Wouldn't
structured.
that already? Wouldn't that already taking place if you took that, if we were to go with a detached?
Right now, our breezeway says it has to be structurally apart, or structurally part of,
Because you're
No.
making it,
no. That's why it was written that way, but it's not because you're making it an attached garage. If we took out the attached part where we would have to amend the breezeway to reflect that.
all right,
So we can lighten up on the rules of the breezeway if we decide
Or eliminate,
detached garages are.
you know,
Just
If-
eliminate
if
it and
we
make it
elim-
optional.
right,
If
that's
we-
what I'm getting
But
at.
if we eliminate breezeways, that, like, breezeways wouldn't even be considered.
No, I'm saying eliminate it from this scenario. I'm not saying
Yeah,
eliminate
yeah.
breezeways, I'm saying it's as simple as, you know, we can leave it the way it is and say that for any new construction, it requires an attached garage. Or we can discuss and consider saying it can be attached or detached.
Yes.
I think the whole.
but then she has to amend if for some reason somebody wants down the road to put a breezeway in. Right now, they would have to,
Have
Right.
four walls and attach
they
it.
would have to
Right,
put a
yeah.
foundation in.
I understand that,
which-
but
Yeah, but
I
separating
think
the
that's a
two,
separate
yes.
issue. You know, I do. think
It
that's a
would be.
separate issue.
That would
I think it's, that's why I'm getting confused, because it's murky, because we're talking about a couple different things.
Well, that's code.
Well,
I mean,
And,
that's.
and technically, I mean, we're only like very, I mean,
That's right.
again, this is just things that I'm bringing back to you,
I
so.
don't think it's code,
No.
to make sure that you gotta have a foundation where your breezeway's
You want an
attached to.
enclosed breezeway, I imagine. Want to protect it from settling.
Well,
If it was
I-
enclosed, yeah.
I can put
It would be
I
the
can put a roof
definition of
over
a
my
breezeway.
walkway on posts. You know, I'm just, for instance, I mean, you know, but like, you know, in my house, I have a ramp that goes right out to my garage. It's a handicap accessible ramp on the side of the house. I can put a roof over that and I can close that in. And, you know, it doesn't meet our definition, but most people would tell you that's a breezeway. You know, the definition and our expectation in our zoning is, you know. You know, I know what our definition of a breezeway is, you know, it's gotta be structurally connected and, you know, but that's not like.
I think the first thing we need to do is we gotta decide, we should all decide whether we're okay with detached garage. Or if we're gonna make LR1 still stay at. Make LR1 stay at attached garages, or if we are okay with making LR1 and the rest of them the same as LR2, where you can put a detached. I think that's the first thing we gotta come up with, right?
Yes and no. Right now, this whole like report of things, that was like, this is nothing that we are deciding tonight.
Right.
What I want to do is finish going through this and then we can identify which parts we want to touch on first.
Okay.
Oh, so you're saying we're being overachievers? Is that what you're telling?
Okay, so then I'm gonna say that everyone needs to look at that and we need a little more information like Mr. Simon asked
Yeah.
for. If you could email that as well.
So, I mean, if you look at all of the,
I saw that it says what it is and what it's going to, but it doesn't say what LR it's in. Is there something that gives us what zone it's in?
I
To
can,
help us.
I can definitely do
That's the
that.
only missing piece.
One other thing I would love to see, and I think it would be useful for all of us, is the average lot size over there. How restrictive would it be for somebody to have a detached garage with the lot size variant? You know, so I mean, if we say that it can be either or, it might, you know, it might be.
So like, I know I wasn't able to circle all, I was gonna circle all of them, but you see where it's circled with the B there? All of these areas that aren't in purple, that are white, are all the areas along with, like, they're all the areas, I guess.
Those are the areas that it would affect the update.
Right, so the LR1, you
It's
know,
pretty much,
consider
much
ordinance
majority.
flexibility, minimum home size, detached garages, breezeways, et cetera, to help construction, reduce construction costs. But I can definitely do a compare with, you know, I can list out what the current zoning is in each district and what we're looking at changing.
That would be great.
Yep.
There's an area on the water that's 1,400 square feet minimum homes, right?
Yeah, so, and that's, when we're talking about reducing, the LR1 to the 1,000 square feet, that is only for back lots, not waterfront.
Right.
Yep.
That's why I'm saying, I mean, that's why I wanted to see, okay, exactly where is this?
And that one
So we
is
can see
specifically
what it
LR1. So like this purple here, existing waterfront neighborhoods, you see all that purple highlight all around that map. That one, preserve existing character, no recommended changes to density, lot sizes, setbacks, or size of homes. Moving past the breezeways though, you know, we need to look at missing housing types is like duplexes. We are looking at doing the brownfield. We are looking at homes that are missing for Lake Isabella, which are your starter homes, your smaller homes, your downsize for people who have the large homes out here who want to stay in the community, but don't want a 3,000 square foot house. They just want a little house all on one floor that they can safely navigate in their later years. You know, we would probably want to identify some districts or specific, you know, lots within a district, if you will, or maybe we just say it's only in our brownfield redevelopment area. Duplexes could be triplexes or townhouses, however you want to word it. We could talk about small homes there if we want to allow those in certain places. ADUs, immediate family right now only. This limits flexibility. A lot of people are cohabitating. And as long as it's not a rental situation, we may want to expand what we consider a family. And who gets to, you know, a lot of residents, especially with interest rates now, they can't afford to buy a new home. But their parents have a 3,000 square foot house, but then now you have, you know, two separate families, and right now we say it's one family with one relative. So that, you know, what if you have a group of elderly women who have lost their husbands, they buy a house together, they can't live together. You know, it limits more than we, I think, want to.
I missed that one.
I don't understand. I mean, why don't they live together?
Because we
If
only
they all
allow,
Own the house,
because they're three separate people.
but if they all three own it, how can you stop them? They
Because
bought a house together, they're all three on the deed, that's their home.
because the village, because it doesn't, I mean, I don't understand how we could stop it, definitely would be something I'd have to take.
We
into
can't.
Yeah,
account, but that
I
is,
know that, if that's. it.
but that is what it is, I mean.
Can you like even just text me where to find that, because I
Yeah.
can't wrap my.
I mean, it's right in our ordinance where it says it can be one family and one non-relative, so three non-relatives apparently cannot live together.
All
per our
right, my
ordinance.
son just moved back from the UP
He's related to you,
with his fiance.
so she's your one non-relative.
Okay, what if, God forbid they were a throuple and he came home with two girlfriends?
That's what I'm, that's
You
what
know,
I'm,
you know, I mean,
no, but that's what I'm saying, like, do you want
I
to,
don't know, Dad, what would you think about that?
You know, well, no, I mean, that's.
this is what I'm saying, like,
We're trying to put your foot
an area in our ordinance that we may need to revisit the definition of what, who we, we may want to lessen that.
You know, cause,
Yeah, I'd like to review that ordinance, because if three
Yeah.
single people buy a house together, they all own the home, they can all live there. We cannot dictate that
I
they
don't- I
cannot
don't
live there
know. I
on the
almost
deed
don't
of
know
a
if that's
property they
legal.
bought.
They said,
I don't know if that could be in our zoning, honestly.
Barely doubt that.
Lost their
The
husbands
DNA
and they would
I mean,
buy a cottage together.
yeah, yeah,
I don't remember seeing that in the ordinances, so.
Yeah,
I just-
I haven't seen it, cause I definitely would have raised a red flag. Like I said, I don't know about the legalities of that. I'd almost have to check into it, because I don't think that we as the village can tell
I
somebody.
think
to
the
live in
other
a house.
couples are gonna.
We can set a standard there, like the state does that. You can only have X amount of people living in a house by such a size, but that seems like a severe overreach if that's actually on the books currently.
We'll have to find where it is that's at, but
I will say that I know that that portion of it came up, and why they regulated it was because they had issues with college students spending the summer in a house. Which led to that restriction being put in
Huh.
place. And it was on this side of the,
College student.
yep, we had three college kids move into a house, and then the ordinance got changed, and they did
They
have
own
to.
it, or they just,
probably one of
The
the parents
parents.
owned it, let their
The parents
daughter or
owned it.
son with his
Yep,
two buddies and.
yes.
And again, though, where would the village have a say in that? It
We
was-
did, and they did end up having to move out, so,
Yeah,
but again, that's what I'm saying. This is an area that we may want to look at, and because of where we are as a society now, it's way different than where we were 20 years ago, and housing is different. Markets are different, and is this something we really want to still regulate as heavily as we do?
I'm gonna say no.
With the exception of
Because how-
obviously renting, we don't want, I mean, we've been very clear on the short-term rentals, like, we do not want short-term rentals, but. If somebody wants to rent a room out in their home, or two rooms out in their home to try to make ends meet, and they have year-long leases. Right now, they wouldn't be able to.
right.
They're just not gonna tell anybody, even if they are doing that, but, I mean,
So that's something that we wanna talk about. Economy homes, which is like the small homes, so we want, and senior housing and cottage housing are all things that, I just kind of, those were just the big things that I saw in all of those, reports. So I also put together the housing action plan implementation matrix. It just kind of shows you, things that we should do. If it's started, not started, under review, in progress, future discussion, who should do it, recommended lead, priority, and timeline. So I mean, none of this is, with the exception of a couple of the 6 to 12 months, none of this is, happening right away.
yeah, we're gonna have to divide it up by meetings, we're gonna have an agenda
So
plan and.
on that last page. I did put in there for the 26-27 planning commission priorities, and if this is okay with you guys. Our high priority should be the minimum dwelling size review, garage and breezeway review. Village owned property development ready property inventory, and to coordinate with MMDC regarding. The inventory, which we're already in the process. And also at the last meeting, we had discussed having them come, I believe they're coming to our August meeting. To make a small presentation and to answer any questions you guys may have. I had a meeting with them 2 Fridays ago. I gave them our 60-ish lots up in north, and we're looking at, they're going to send it out to see what a developer could possibly propose up there. So that we have an idea of what we may want to ask a developer to, when we go out for proposals, what we may want to include in that. Medium priority would be to evaluate the ADUs, duplex housing, age-friendly housing, builder outreach. The reason that's medium priority is because that's obviously something that's gonna take a little longer. It's with the exception of ADUs, but since it's not a huge issue right now, it's just something that, we definitely need to be more aware of. I put it in for medium. Long-term priorities will be the brownfield, the annual housing report, and then, periodically reviewing the housing action plan. So what I'm hearing is that you want me to take the high priorities and break it down per zoning district.
Yes, please.
And what's currently there, and a few different proposals of what we're looking
Yeah.
to see. I mean, on one hand, the building out here has been really good.
Yes.
And so you think that some things are definitely working, so we don't need to fix what isn't broke. And then on the other hand, we are coming into a time, or we've been in a time for a couple of years, that property taxes have continued to increase, the cost of building has continued to increase. And it is imperative on backlots that we find a way to develop those with young families that can afford to live in.
Yes.
So we're trying to accomplish both things, and we know that what we were doing has been working. But now, as we see that the waterfront is developed, what is not developing as fast is on the outskirts, because the affordability is not there for the.
And the change, I mean, when I first started out, my first house was 600 square feet. And then that was my husband, myself, then we had our 2 kids in there and like 12 animals, so because I'm an animal lover. And I was like, I just need a bigger house, and my ideal house was like 3,000 square feet, and I just want a bigger house. But now, if you ask a 20-year-old, which is about what I was when we bought our first house, a lot of them are saying, we want small homes. We want, these homes that are just, a place to literally just sleep and eat. They want to do their entertaining outside. They want to have a beautiful outside yard, but they don't want a large home that they are, have to fill or whatever. It's really weird to see that dynamic, from a personal standpoint even.
They can't afford it.
And yeah, especially, they can't afford it. Taxes, like you said, and building costs are just, and when you can bring in some of these tiny homes or these tiny cottage communities, if you will, it hits on a lot of notes. I mean, it could work for senior housing, it could work for first-time home buyers, it could work for singletons. There's just a lot of things that we could, definitely look at to help, bring some more building back in, because this year we've approved with this house that's gonna come in, it's like, will be our 3rd house this year. The last 3 years after we removed the restrictions that allowed a lot of we would remove the restrictions on whether or not we could get a septic permit, and or, if you were allowed to use not non-conventional septic system out here, we saw a boom that we hadn't seen in many, many years. And we were all hoping that that would continue, and this year it's come to a screeching halt. So.
Housing has been very different this year.
Yeah.
Yes,
It has been very different
yes,
on all fronts.
yes.
Okay, so we've got a lot of work ahead. It sounds like we'll get some information to review before the next meeting. And we'll likely have to break things up into little nuggets, and we won't get through all of it in each meeting, because we've got just too much on the agenda. So, anything more on that?
New business, Rolland Road, private road discussion on Richards Way.
Can I make a comment on all of that? Did you guys read all of the
Yeah.
backup and stuff that we've had? He's making accusations that it was done on purpose to bar him. He's out there where we're at. So he somehow decided that the association that I'm in took it upon ourselves to convince Tim not to allow him to have his road.
Hmm.
And it's in the paperwork there, he even says it, that
Yeah.
those, what do you call it, Karens on the island?
Oh,
We're the Karens.
I see. I didn't know what he was talking. I
Yep.
got it.
And supposedly, he's mad because we couldn't tell him exactly where the septic line went.
Hmm.
They put it in 2005, and even the guy that put it in can't tell us where it's at. So it took some work, but he looked at it as though we were trying to restrict him from building his road with his father's name. So there's a lot of accusations in his emails, and I don't know if we can do this, but I would like to see this entire package turned over to our legal. Because he gets in there and started, if he doesn't get what he wants, he's gonna take us to court for $35,000 for his drainage.
Yeah.
But he's saying that includes taking the trees out. There's no trees where his drainage is. So,
That's, and he can do that. Anybody can take us to court if they want to have us.
right, but I'm saying, shouldn't we have legal look at it before we make a decision?
Yeah, I talked to him,
Oh.
after he was here after the one meeting. And I was honest with him, I haven't had the chance to tell you guys this. I really don't like restrictive zoning, like, I think all the zoning laws are almost an infringement on people's rights to do what they want with their land. I know that there are some required, I totally support, setbacks and stuff to keep the peace with the neighbors, but much beyond that, I think you're just limiting what people can do. I think people should be able to do on their property what they want. With some caveats, so if I block well things, that's why, because, and I'm not the only person out there that believes that, but like I told him though, and I was open and honest with him, I was like, I don't know the whole story. I told him, I said, but with what you're telling me, basically you're mad that you put the cart before the horse. And he's like, what do you mean? And I says, well, from what you're telling me with limited information, I says, you're upset that you spent all this money doing something before you had legal approval to do so. That would be no different than me doing an addition on my house without getting permits and then being mad when you all said, hey, you can't do that.
Bring it down.
So if it does go to court, I mean, any court is gonna see that. The simple fact is he did not have permits to do so. He opted to do things out of his pocket, so there's no financial liability to us. It's not like we told him, yes, go ahead and get started, and then changed our minds and revoked permission, if you will, or revoked a permit.
I think what he's asking, if I read it from what I also understand, is that he asked information to put his road in and name it. And then we went in after he'd spent some time here talking about it with Tim. Then Tim came out and we did, the ones that were here then, did the ordinance that says no more private roads. So he's saying that we did it on purpose to block him.
Yeah.
And so that's what his whole battle, that's
Right.
a big
And
thing.
he'll have to prove, he'll have to prove intent, and then, how. Like I said, the simple fact of the matter is he did not have a permit to do so, and now he's upset and rules have changed in that timeline, so, potentially it's no longer even an option.
So what you're thinking is we just, I don't know if it's zoning board of thing, aren't they the ones that
The
say
zoning
whether he
board
can
of
do it?
appeals only will look at it if it's a dimensional variance or. What's the other one?
So it's up to us to say yes.
It's up to you on whether you want to move forward or if you want to
So
stay.
it's up to us to say, yes, you can violate the ordinance and put your private road in.
So if
Why
the,
is the private road
so,
driveway?
so if the ordinance was put in after he talked to Tim, and there is a bunch of Karens on the island. So what? I mean, the ordinance was put in before or it was put in before he actually constructed, right? Because it sound like that Tim didn't necessarily give him any type of approval, correct?
But if you read the
Well,
ordinance, it
could
also
have.
says going from this, the approval of this ordinance going forward.
That's
It
fine,
doesn't
what
say
I'm
it's
saying.
retroactive to people that applied for it,
So-
haven't done it yet.
Had he signed the private road agreement that Tim sent him, he would have been grandfathered in.
Okay.
And
But
resubmitted it.
there was nothing there, right?
Right.
So it doesn't matter that you're a hearing.
The house
Yeah.
wasn't there.
There's no house there now.
Now, he wanted to get in our
It's
sewer
just a
system.
road.
He wanted to cut
He
a
just
track
has
trail
a
through our.
driveway that
He wants it to be a road to be legally
perfect-
recognized on the GIS. And in order to do that, it has to be considered a private road to be on the GIS to give his.
And this is why 911 and the different entities are involved to see if they would
Needs to
even
be a county
recognize
approval as
this.
a county
Yeah.
road.
So we can't approve that anyway, the county would
No.
have to
Well,
say.
it's county recognized by the GIS
Right,
and the fire department, the police
Because
department.
They
as-
do
as a road.
recognize it already?
no,
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 They-
it would if he
It's
wants it.
within the village.
because he's on Rollin Road, that's a county road.
Uh-huh.
But once you come off of Rollin, that's within the village limits, so the village has to give him the approval to do the private road in order for the county to then
Gotcha.
recognize it on their GIS system.
So he
That's
took
what he
his lot
wants.
and he put a road right through it, like a big old driveway. And wants to name it.
And let's make it a private road,
And
not
he,
just name it.
yeah, he wants to make it a private road. He, now again, we did get the survey, which I will print off. Well, I'll just forward you the email,
Yeah,
honestly.
that'd be great.
You do have the actual email. I handed
I
that
have
out to you.
it, yes.
I don't have the survey. That was done in May of this year. But the work itself was done prior to getting the approval. And like Joe said, I mean, it really does come down to, you know, the progression of things should have been, he asked Tim what he needed. He then provided those things. Tim would have given him the approval. And then he would have started.
But he just
Once
did
he
it.
was
But he
then.
never got the approval.
He never
from
got,
Tim.
yeah,
never signed it.
So
So-
that,
and then,
I mean, it should, like I said, it shouldn't really matter if we do not want that, and it sounds like we don't want it.
well, it's already in the books
And-
that it's no longer eligible, if you will, our zoning mandates that that's not. It's not.
But this would have been his avenue to come to ask you if you would reconsider allowing him to pursue what he started prior to going into the hospital. Now, that being said, you know, you guys have multiple things that come to you about proposals on, and some of them get pretty far and then they just drop off, and that's because they don't want to do it anymore, but they don't ever come back.
Yeah.
You know, him going into the hospital was awful timing, and I'm so grateful that he, you know, is back with us, you know. However, somebody could have reached out and said, hey, I'm in the hospital, or he is in the hospital, he is still wanting to do this, how can we get this approved? We
He's just
didn't
sort of
hear
dropped it at this
anything
point.
until this year. So like you guys went through your entire process to do the ordinance. You had your public hearings, you sent it off to the council, they had their public hearings. You know, the recordings for the minutes, were all on our website. I mean,
And no objections.
and no objections. We heard nothing until this year when he came. And then, yes, when he came in to ask me again what it was Tim needed to get the private road. And in the back of my mind, I remembered, I was like, I'm pretty positive the planning commission, you know, created an ordinance that no longer allows private roads for the main reason as, you know, it doesn't even have anything to do with him necessarily. It has to do with if you have a private road, which we have a private easement, if you will, and then, we have a couple, I think, private roads, but yeah, and,
Although we'd like ours to become a village road. I can just
But
buy it.
if he decided to, let's say, split his lot, so now that private road is going to go to 2 homes. Or maybe he splits his lot 4 ways and now it's gonna go to 4 homes. And let's say they're all owned by his own family members, which is great. It works for them. But then 50 years down the road, they all pass away. And now we've got 4 homes, 4 different owners, not related, on a private road. That was, I'm assuming, where you guys came from when you did this, because nobody maintains private roads. And at some point, people would want the village to take it over.
And how big is this lot? How can he split this lot?
It's big enough, it's big enough to be
It's 5
split.
acres.
Yeah,
The lot is 5 acres.
Well, this,
and if it has a private road, because in order to split the lot, you have to have a private road.
I was gonna say, since when do we split lots at Lake Isabella?
Oh, all
We
the
do if
time.
you need
Yeah.
to make money.
Yeah.
people are allowed
He can
to,
make it into
Yeah.
what do we call a site condo.
Mhm.
And he could take that and break that into site condos. Because the subdivision law will take him 2 years to get through.
Right.
And then that's just not gonna work.
But he
But he
needs
can,
a road.
he needs a road, and he puts in a road to whatever specs that we would approve, then turns around and makes 4 lots site condo. That's a 90-day, 120-day process. You put that in, get that adopted,
And
and then you
that's,
can sell.
Yeah, and I'm not
So-
saying, and we're not saying that he would do that, but
It's
because,
possible.
but if, when he no longer owns the property, if we have allowed this private road there, it is possible for whoever buys that property to then do that.
well, wouldn't,
That-
wouldn't that be part of the sale though? Cause I know like certain easements, like I bought.
It's not an easement, it would be considered.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, okay, a certain drive, it's a privately owned drive, but I've lived in places where it is a private drive, but there are multiple residents on it. But one parcel maintains ownership and is responsible for that drive, even though it's a
Hold on,
easement or.
Mike,
They're all given easements to that road.
Right.
how is your road handled?
By the association, it's property and handled and managed by the association, which there's, 19 of us.
But the village doesn't have anything in place that would say how that would happen. And it wouldn't be an association. And like Leo's saying, the site condo, sure, that would put something in place, but is that something that, that's what the planning commission was going from. It's like, we needed to look at the future.
Right.
And
We're trying to protect that from.
yeah,
and we've already spoke on the topic.
You've already
We've already
spoke on
defined it.
Yep.
So at this point, it would need to go to the ZBA.
no,
What we
it
have-
can't, he would have to take us to court.
Right.
Because it's so
If you
far.
don't
And they'll take us
reconsider.
to court
it's
for
gonna-
$35,000 plus, plus, plus.
Okay, do we know the
That's what the-
timelines? Okay,
Well, we have the timelines
Right,
in our
right,
packet.
Was it,
okay.
was there a reason to discuss it if we declined it? Then we-
That's what I'm thinking. I think
we
you've
just-
already said our
I-
part.
I-
Why don't we
yeah,
need to-
well,
Well, if we
he-
are.
Talk about it anyway.
Last Tuesday, because he thought the meeting was last Tuesday. I really thought he was going to be here tonight.
Thought he would too.
Because he called a couple times to make sure that the meeting was tonight.
He was watching. Well, his last letter says he wanted, if not, he was expecting a reimbursement for the
Yeah.
$35,000.
Yes.
It's
We have
already in
people-
writing from him.
We have people on it?
As far as I know, no, because I did have somebody message me and saying that it is not live. It is recording, so I will be able to put it up later, but it is not live.
Jeff was watching.
Yeah.
Is he watching?
Yeah, he.
Oh,
texted
yes,
me.
watching, you're right. So yes, it is live. Maybe the other person
Jeff-
actually is.
Jeff-
Maybe they were struggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how much, I haven't driven by the place, how much of that is developed so far?
None of it.
None of it. It's just all the engineering studies and everything else that he's done, that he spent all this money on.
He
Right.
cut some trees down and he put in a culvert.
Yes, a big culvert.
He said that he was gonna put in a smaller one, but Tim told him he had to have
He
a
had
bigger
it
one.
for drainage and it, because they had to meet certain regulations of water.
But he
flow
didn't
and all
have to
that.
put in the culvert yet.
Well.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean.
Right.
That's where the car did the horse.
Went
Yeah.
forward without having proper authorization,
That's what you said, yeah. Exactly.
So I just need, the planning commission stance on how you would like me to proceed when he calls. You know, there's a couple,
Looked at it, we're
I,
not gonna
I,
reconsider.
I'd say that we say that we all looked at it, agreed, not change anything.
It's unfortunate
The
time.
stance,
Right.
our stance is still the same as it was when this was declined.
Yeah,
I do think Mr. Simon was right, these
Thank you
probably
for
should be
all the
looked at by our
information.
legal counsel to make sure that we,
Thank you for all the information
Yeah, we are
that's
good.
submitted in, but our
Yeah.
decisions remain the same. All right, and so that we're not gonna aggravate the issue, which thank him for all the stuff he sent in. But unfortunately, based on that information and what we've had, our decisions remain the same. All right,
Okay, yeah.
so there's no one here and no one online, so we don't need to open public comment. I think as members, we're probably about commented out. How do you guys feel?
no,
No announcements other than next month's meeting would be August 11th. I have that right? Tuesday, August 11th. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay, so Tuesday, August 11th. Jessica's got a little list that she's gonna send us in advance. If everyone can please review it so we can move quickly through the agenda, especially because, you know, hopefully we have some happy community members, but if we end up with more public comment, that kind of extends the meeting. So we'll want to kind of be as organized as possible.
yeah.
So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:30.